English is used in different circles of English for different purposes. It is used as a first language, a medium of education, a language of diplomacy. It is also used in different professions, so on and so forth. To perform all these functions or to carry out all these purposes, we perform different activities. For example, agreeing, disagreeing, requesting, accepting, rejecting, apologizing, negotiating, persuading, etc. We must also keep in mind that in the context of world Englishes, all these activities are performed in different socio-cultural contexts. They can be performed face-to-face, that is orally, or in writing. In this unit, we'll discuss how the users of English in different varieties of English perform these activities using different socio-cultural conventions, how they use language in both speech and writing using different socio-cultural conventions of language use. It is important to understand that languages vary across cultures because of these reasons. For example, the way interactions are conducted and the nature of interactions differ across cultures. Not only that, sociocultural values also are different in different cultures. Conventions of language use and then even linguistic structure is different in different varieties. And these differences that we observe in different varieties are due to the influence, in some cases, the influence of the first language of the users of English in these countries, in the outer circle countries, outer expanding circle countries, and also different socio-cultural values. We have been talking about performing different activities or achieving different purposes using language. Let's take a look at what these activities are called. When you perform an action using only language or not any physical activity, that action is called a speech act. So, a speech act can be defined as an act that a speaker performs making an utterance and making an utterance only without the aid of any physical action. For example, you do not use your limbs, talk, get up, walk around, etc. to perform these speech acts. Speech acts include actions like or activities like requesting, promising, asking, demanding, apologizing, accepting, rejecting, so on and so forth. When we perform these speech acts, a certain degree of politeness is also used with the language. And languages differ also in the conventions of the use of politeness. There are some people who are oriented to negative politeness, and then there are other people or groups of people or entire communities which are oriented to positive politeness. People who are oriented to negative politeness are often perceived as introverts, people who are aloof, unfriendly, etc. And people who are oriented to positive performance, on the other hand, may be perceived as over-friendly and sometimes even unsophisticated. Before going any further, let's take a look at what we mean by negative politeness and positive politeness. Negative politeness are the strategies that avoid offense by showing deference. So you do not want to displease your addressee or your interlocutor, or you want to please them by showing deference, showing respect to them. And one way or one strategy that is used for showing deference to your addressee is the use of these terms of honor, respect, for example, Dr., Mr., Mrs., Miss, etc. In some cultures, for example, South Asian culture, Pakistan, India, people go to the extent of addressing their interlocutor as sir and madam, although especially sir is a title which is reserved for aristocracy in England. Similarly, when it comes to making requests, the requests are not made directly but indirectly. For example, would you mind or wouldn't you mind if we shut the door instead of directly asking, can I shut the door? Positive politeness are the strategies that avoid offense by highlighting friendliness, not only showing respect or deference, but highlighting friendliness, showing this proximity, closeness to the addressee. Examples include the use of nicknames. For example, you can call a chubby friend a fatso, or use other nicknames for them. It also includes using exaggerated approvals and compliments. For example, if a person is looking nice one day, instead of giving a reserved kind of compliment, you give an exaggerated compliment saying you look terrific. Similarly, requests are also made involving the addressee. So, you look cold, Sam. Should we shut the window? Instead of saying, can I shut the window? When it comes to the actual use of negative and positive politeness in different cultures, the show of negative politeness, this convention of the use of negative politeness is used by communities where interaction between strangers are oriented towards deference. The interaction is reserved, there's a distance involved when you interact with strangers. On the other hand, the communities where show of positive politeness is the convention, the interaction between strangers are expected to be more friendly and personable. So you can address a person you've just met using their first name, whereas in a community where the orientation is towards negative politeness, somebody you're meeting for the first time, you would never address them by their first name or call them auntie, uncle, as we do in Pakistan. Whereas in societies which are oriented towards positive politeness, they would use first name and would also give compliments, use other terms of endearment. For example, honey is a term of endearment which is widely used in American English. But if you address somebody or add honey when you address somebody in Pakistan using English, the other person will be offended. So negative politeness is oriented more towards deference, keeping a distance with the interlocutor, and positive politeness is oriented more towards this show of closeness and friendliness with your interlocutors.